Good evening. We'll now start the board meeting for today, February the 26th, 2019. I want to welcome everyone to the City of Little Rock for this board meeting. We're very appreciative of it. We'll first start this agenda meeting with a presentation from Service Line Warranties of America.
Okay, yeah, Mayor, thank you. We have two people from the company here, Mike DiCarlo and Jessica Finch, that will both do portions of their presentation.
Thank you very much, everybody, for your time today. As an introduction, my name is Mike DiCarlo. My apologies. My name is Mike DiCarlo. This is Jessica Finch. We are from Service Line Warranties of America. We represent the account management team and wanted to talk a little bit about the program for those who may not be familiar with the program. Who is SLWA? We are one of the largest and most trusted provider of emergency home repair plans. We have over 3.7 million households covered around the country, with over 600 partners that include municipalities and private utilities. We cover 6 different municipalities here in Arkansas. The largest one, or the longest one, going back to North Little Rock, where we have been a partner with them since 2012 and has saved their residents. We've performed nearly 1,300 jobs for their residents and saved them nearly $1.3 million in repair services that they would have had to pay for out of pocket had they had to pay for those home repairs by themselves. So I understand that Little Rock launched the program late last year, and the launching of this program coincided with the end of Mayor Stadler's term, which caused some confusion among residents because his signature was included on the endorsement letter that is included with the offer letter that's sent to residents. And just to provide you with some history on why that signature is included, we have another partner here in Arkansas, Source Gas, and back in 2015, they entered into an agreement with the Arkansas Attorney General that required them, if they were to use their logo, they would have to follow certain requirements, and having the signature of the municipality was one of those requirements. So our legal and compliance team thought it would be a best practice to use those requirements throughout Arkansas partnerships, which is why Mayor Stadler's signature was on the letter that went out in December and January. We understand, though, that this has caused some confusion among residents and some concerns, so we want to address that. We want to work with you to come to a resolution. We have, in other communities, instead of using the mayor's name and signature on the endorsement letter, we've used a city manager or a public works director signature. If that would be an option, we can go back to our legal and compliance team. Alternatively, we can also have the endorsement letter just from the city of Little Rock without an individual signature. We can definitely approach our legal and compliance team with that solution as well. A couple of the other requirements that the Attorney General required that Source Gas use that we have carried over to our partnership with you is to include on the envelope that is sent to residents the fact that this is an optional program, and that fact is also mentioned in the letter that is received by residents. It's optional, and it's not provided by the city. It's provided by Service Line Warranties of America. So we try to make that very clear in both the letter and the envelope, but we would definitely be willing to work with you if there's additional feedback on how that could be made more clear. And lastly, I know there was some of the confusion among residents We could also address through media coverage. We could do a press release that is sent to local media, as well as provide training for residents here or agents here who answer the phone to provide answers to frequently asked questions, and a transfer to our call center in Chattanooga to help resolve any types of questions or customer service issues that may be inadvertently directed towards the city. Are there any specific questions that I can answer for you today?
Well, thank you so much for your, sharing that update. We'll take a question from Director Wright.
Well, not so much a question. I wanted to share some of the concerns that have been expressed to me from some of my constituents, and they seem to be concerned that the city was even sponsoring something like this. They felt that it was something the city was getting paid from, and I needed that to be clarified. So, is the city of Little Rock making any money on this program?
Yes. There is a
Okay.
commission that is paid to the city for every resident who does sign up for the program. And there is a license fee that is paid in the amount of 50 cents per household per month, and that's paid at the end of the year in January based on the number of people who have signed up for the program. Separately from that, there is also a brand fee that is paid to the city for the use of their logo and the endorsement of the city for the program. And that consists of a 3-year payment. The first year, which was paid last month, is in the amount of $21,000. The second year is $10,500, and the third year is also $10,500. And it's our understanding that that money is to go back to residents in the form of either a residence assistance fund or assistance with the sewer program that is being conducted by the city of Little Rock.
Mr. Assistant City Manager, is that the case? Can you verify that?
The case of
The money, this money that's coming as a result of citizens signing up for this. So, Mr. Carpenter, can you address it?
Yes, Director Wright, that was a part of the resolution that the board approved when the NLC program was adopted. The money is primarily, I think, going to be used to help with the rehabilitation of homes that are in having trouble with the Department of Housing, and the people don't have the money to be able to repair their own homes, but they don't qualify for federal monies.
So, this is money what department is administering this?
The Department of Housing and Neighborhood Programs would administer it. I don't know where the money is today, but that's who would administer it. Look, I don't know where any money is today, so don't be upset about that. But Department of Housing would deal with that.
So, this is a revenue stream that would go into a pool that we would use to help citizens that need rehab on their homes.
Who can't afford to do so, but who do not qualify for federal assistance.
Okay.
it would be certain citizens who have appeared in environmental court. And they're in
Okay.
environmental court because they have not done the upgrades based on the notices that have been submitted via housing on their homes.
Recall
And so
this discussion.
And so they would be able to tap into some of these dollars to do the upgrades to their homes to get them out of environmental court.
And I know I have this confused look on my face, and I was going through. It was a busy year last year, but I just don't recall a lot of this being discussed, Mayor. I don't recall this information, so that's why I'm having to ask these questions. The next question that my constituents have asked me is, why was this not bid out? Why did we do it this way?
Well, the city's not paying anything for this as part of why it was not bid out. The other factor is that this program had been endorsed by the National League of Cities and had been here otherwise. We reviewed the company's papers with both the Secretary of State and with the Insurance Commissioner, and they were in good standing in both places.
Now, that part I do remember, but this other part I don't remember. I would like more information on the use of the funds, the revenue. And, Mayor, I would definitely like to have more advertisement put out on this, more of an explanation so that people understand what this is. I knew it was National League of Cities. I knew they work with municipalities. I knew by virtue of the fact that they covered so many households that our citizens would get a reduced rate, because anytime you have a pool, it's always cheaper. Insurance is always cheaper in a pool. So that much I could explain. And the fact that it's optional, I kept stressing that as well. So, but people just seem to feel like the city shouldn't be offering this, and I don't quite understand why they feel like that. But if you got a sewer problem and you have to dig up all of that, I think you realize quite quickly how many thousands of dollars you can be out of. And I want this discussion, Mayor, so that people can hear the very fact of the matter. If whatever you are responsible for, and if you don't have this type of coverage, you got to come up with that to fix it. The city's not going to do it.
And Director, right, I completely agree. I think a lot of the confusion may be resolved with additional communication. I can have our Senior Vice President of Public Relations work with some of the local media to get the word out, to explain a little bit more about the program. One of the things that we've also found helpful is, I don't know if this would be a possibility for the city, but also having a banner or message on the city website that would provide some additional information and direct them to the SLWA website if they were interested in learning more or opting in for coverage.
And I want to be clear, I think it's a good program. I think it's a good insurance. I actually have a warranty on my home that I had to pay extra for in order to get the coverage that you are offering. So I already have it, because I know I've seen people have to come up with thousands of dollars if they have a sewer line burst on their property. And heaven help you if it goes under the street. Yeah. So, okay, I just felt that my constituents needed to hear that, because I was invited to a meeting last Tuesday night that I couldn't make because of the board meeting, and I told them we were going to ask the question, and then we had to be dismissed abruptly. So we didn't get to have this discussion last week. Thank you.
Mr. Assistant City Manager, then I'll come to Director Adcock.
Hey, yes, sir, Mayor. Thank you. One other thing that when Mr. DiCarlo and I visited today, that he suggested, we get a lot of phone calls at City Hall and other departments, and that they would be happy to provide us with a number we could transfer the citizen to their company who knows the programs and can explain it a lot better than some of our personnel.
And that would be included in some additional training that may, if desired, could be provided to the city as well.
Director Adcock.
Mr. Jones, this has been very confusing because people out Lawson Road, East End, out Hensley, Wrightsville, who have a Little Rock address but does not have Central Arkansas Water, is getting these letters. So can you tell us what lists you use to send letters out?
We purchased a mailing list based on a footprint of the Little Rock zip code.
Well, lots of our people in the zip code are not in the city limits of Little Rock, so they're not serviced by Central Arkansas Water. So I would like to suggest that they sit down with Tad or someone from Central Arkansas Water and get the boundaries that they should be soliciting for this insurance instead of all out in our extraterritorial, because we've got lots of people calling saying, hey, can I get this? And they really can't. But we need to make sure that your list is a list that is city limits of Little Rock.
Absolutely. We can work with anybody to develop the list that we can use for
The
future
man
mailings.
back over there in the blue suit, he is Central Arkansas Water, and he would be the best person to give you that information.
He would. And one thing, Director Adcock, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, it's, my understanding that to participate in their program or to purchase insurance, you don't necessarily have to be on the CAW water line or be, actually in the city. Anybody outside the city can purchase the insurance from them or anyone else.
Well, we need to be very clear on that because I'm telling them that the Central Arkansas Water and the people in East End would love to have this service, and they have their own water system. So we need to be very clear on who can join this program.
Okay, and I think in CAW, can address this. It's if I understand it correctly, they don't have any part of the program. And even if you purchase this insurance and have to have a line replaced, they don't have to have any approval from CAW to connect to the meter.
Then will we get the 50 cents for each one of those?
Yes.
That is not on Central Arkansas Water, but they can join?
Correct.
Yes, the agreement we have is between SLWA and the city of Little Rock. So whatever the water provider is for the customers within the city would be eligible.
So as long as it says City of Little Rock on their mailing address, they're eligible. Thank you.
All right, seeing no other questions, again, as you can see, there's a lot of confusion with this, with your organization and its communication with the community. Being that this did not happen under my administration, I would think you do need to take the name of the mayor because it does give some false pretense that this administration is in support of this. And not to say that I am or I'm not, but that's something I haven't had enough time to research and review. And it seems like many members of this board of directors, due to however it was rolled out, may not have, still can recall that procedure. So I think the onus is on your organization to make certain of that. But I would advise, if you would, please take the notice of Mayor Stoller's name off of if you're going to be sending communication to citizens of Little Rock. I think our city attorney is looking into the logo usage. I think you guys have had a meeting and are working through that as we move forward. And we can talk after this meeting a little bit more into that, but we want to make certain that there's clear communication and that nothing is misrepresented or miscommunicated with the public as we move forward. So I would advise that you guys please work on that as quickly as possible. That being said, we'll ask Mr. Tad Bohannon to please come up for Central Arkansas Water.
Thank you very much.
Hello. I think they're getting my presentation up and ready. Got delayed talking to people, and so I got delayed getting it back there, and they're getting it up there. So it's up there now. Glad to be back before you all. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Directors, for asking me to come back. I mean this, we need to do this more often because I was putting my presentation today, and I got a few slides, so I'm going to move as quickly as I can. So if we can go to the next slide. This kind of just gives you an idea of where we're going, and I hope to answer all the questions that were raised by Director Hines a couple of weeks ago, and we'll get near the end at the reserves, and then we'll answer any other questions that come up. Next slide, please. So I know this is a hot item that always comes up, and so I just wanted to give you a little update on the Lake DeGray agreement. It is sitting in Washington, D.C. It is sitting on the desk of Mr. R.D. James, who is the ASA for Civil Works, to sign. It has been through a process. And I say that in that there's not another agreement like this in the country, and that is that CAW will not be required to pay power for gone to the electric utilities that make electric power out of Lake DeGray until we actually take water out of the lake. If we would have signed the standard agreement that is normally signed in these situations, we would have owed, in the first 5 years, about $2 million a year, and every year after that, another $1 million a year when we weren't even taking water. And I just kind of put my foot in the ground and said, we're not doing that. And so finally, everybody has signed off on it, and it is sitting up in Washington, D.C. for it to be signed off for us to have an additional water source for 100 million gallons a day. And the price for it is up there at the $4.6 million that we'll pay. It's a one-time payment. And then we have a perpetual right to withdraw 100 million gallons of water a day from that lake should we need to go get it. Next slide, please. Uh-oh, you got a question already? When is the 4.6 due? It's due over, I've got that in a later slide, but it's due in basically we have to pay it out over 4 years. But we have to pay it out over 4 years. All right. Our utility focus the last couple of years has kind of been on improved operation, community involvement, employee development. Next slide. And so I'm going to dive right into that. This is just a scatter metrics of shows where we've had main repairs. And you say, well, what's this got to do with anything? And I think you can say, well, we have more repairs in the older age parts of town. And this shows where we've had to go in and do main repairs. And we continue to do this. This is not replacements. We're going to talk about replacements in a minute. This is actually just repairs where we come in and do repairs. Next slide. This is some of the major relocation projects that we've been engaged in. The green circles are in replacement projects that have already been completed out Canis Road. It's mainly where the city is doing road renovations or road widening. And sometimes it's where the highway department is doing road renovations or road widenings. But those are some of the major projects that we've been involved in around the city with relocations to accommodate road change. Next road. Our heartbeat, how we determine how we're healthy, is based on brakes. The number of brakes in the system. That's how we determine how efficient our arteries are in our system delivering water. And so over the years, we've been working really hard to replace pipe, aging infrastructure, so that we reduce the number of breaks. Breaks also mean there's a chance for people to be out of service. Last year in 2018, we had where people were out of service, total people was about 4,000 people. Now, you say that's a lot, but I don't want to throw energy under the bus, but they can have a powder outage and they'll have 4,000 out in one outage. So we think actually keeping that down, we're trying to get it to zero. But 4,000 people being without water for a period of time is, we're trying to work that down. But it comes out of spontaneous breaks. We can't, they happen. 2018 ticks up there on galvanized pipe, and you want to know reason? It's because it was so cold last January. Pipes were freezing, pipes were getting cold. If you remember how cold it was last January, people's pipes were freezing in their house. It was causing breaks in our galvanized pipes. So we are really focused on galvanized pipe replacement. You can see that in the previous 3 years as the number of breaks per year has been coming down. Next. And so this kind of gets you where we're going. We replace about $13.25 million a year in pipes, which is up from where it's been in the past. We've been trying to increase that every year. And the blue line is galvanized pipe replacements, the per 100 miles of pipe. The green bar is all our pipes together. And the red line shows how it's been decreasing year over year. Next slide. This one shows that we're trying to get where our main breaks per 100 miles of pipe are below 15 main breaks per 100 miles of pipe per year. That tells us that we are operating as a first-class utility, doing what we need to do to be able to take care of our infrastructure, and we're getting close. Next slide. In fact, if you look at galvanized pipe, it's at 19.1, but if you look at all the pipes, all pipe is 19.1, but if you take galvanized pipe out of it, we're actually at 13.0 breaks per 100 miles of pipe, and that's why we are focused on replacing 2-inch galvanized pipe. When you see CAW crews out with the directional boring machine, it is most likely we are replacing 2-inch galvanized pipe. We are not the only directional boring machines out at work in the city. There are several other utilities that have directional boring machines, and they regularly, are in the neighborhoods too. So just because you see a directional boring machine, don't think it's us. Look for our crews and our trucks. But we are out there trying to replace 2-inch galvanized pipes to reduce the number of breaks. Next slide. One of the things that we've been challenged with is this is a picture of a display from our local Walmart. And it's an advertisement trying to convince people that they should buy bottled water. I'm here to tell you that we have really good water. And there's no reason to be buying bottled water. Thank you for not having a bottle, but just having a cup with ice in it. There is no reason to be buying bottled water except for convenience. Several of you, for instance, have asked about bottled water from us for various events, and we don't have it anymore. We've taken our stand. We've kind of said we're not going to be supplying bottled water. Doug Shackelford's back here, and he's with our public relations and communications team, and he'll show up at any event with dispensers of water, and we'll provide the cups, and we'll make it available, water available, but we're trying not to provide bottled water. It's not a revenue thing. You know, it's amazing when you just even look at the Little Rock area market, bottled water exceeds tap water consumption. People are drinking more water out of bottles than they are out of their tap. Okay? But even with all that, we've calculated it, and it comes up to about lost revenue of about $40,000. Now, I don't want to even talk about what the number would have been spent on at either, 99 cents or $1.98 for every one of those little bottles of water, but it's a huge number. But one of the problems we're trying to fight with education is the lost confidence factor. We don't want people to think, well, to have clean, safe water, I need to go buy bottled water, because the water that comes out of our tap is very clean, very safe, and it's a whole lot cheaper than buying bottled water. Thank you for that short advertisement period for me there. Next. We're doing other things and that we're involved in the community. We've been working with the director in State Department of Health. He's recognized how far we go and how far we work to make sure that our water is safe and that we're providing to our citizens. We have a Citizens Water Academy. I think we have a director that's going to participate in our next one, is that we hope. But it's been available for a couple of sessions now, and we would encourage you to come participate in it. Or if the board wanted to do a special Citizens Water Academy just for you all, we'd be happy to put that together for you. If you just let me know. But it's an education about what's the water process from force to faucet. We have the Power of Water, where we work with teachers. We bring teachers in during the summer. They get professional development education for it as far as they're concerned. We work with UALR's education department. They're provided curriculum, and they're able to use physics, biology, chemistry, all those areas when they take it back to their classroom and use the water system to demonstrate those items. Forest to Faucets is a program we have for school kids where they come out, they build a water system, they learn about chemistry, they learn about physics. In fact, we're going to have 80 fifth graders from Booker Elementary out at the Wilson Treatment Plant on Thursday. And it's just a continuous program that we offer to schools and have people come. We do community events. Cities for Forest is a program to improve water quality within cities. And the Water Provider Task Force is actually a national program we're engaged in with making sure that water providers are providing the right education programs for their communities. Next. These are just some of the pictures from some of our different education events. Just up there, the teachers really enjoy it. It's one of the, it books up fast. As soon as the advertisement goes out that we have this program for the teachers, it seems to book up rather quickly. Next. We also recognize that we need to get better. Utility doesn't get better on its own. It gets better. The people at it get better, and we work on that constantly. Our thing is we're high VIP. We're high performing, innovative, values driven, informed, and passionate. And every employee is getting work on that. If you see our employees doing good stuff, I'd appreciate knowing. If you see our employees doing something that you have questions about it, let me know about that too, because we want to be as good as we can possibly be. Next. One thing you may not be aware is we've changed contractors in the Marina. If anybody's been out to the Marina at Lake Maumelle in years past, we've changed contractors and we're moving it in a different direction. Next slide. This shows some of the improvements they actually did to the Marina. They've put in a children's area out there for when they're out there. Next. This is the phases that they are working with. They are still in phase one, working on the actual Marina building, and then the oldest docks that are out there, phase two. They're going to do some work on cleaning up the property around in different areas. And then phase three, clean up the oldest docks. It's our hope. This is a great example, first of all, of a public-private partnership. There is no rate funder. There's no ratepayer money going into this. This is all independent capital going into this. The other part of it is eventually we hope to be able to book in the city with the Clinton Library and the Heifer Project on the east end, and that you'll say as a destination, you really got to go out and see our marina out at Lake Maumelle. It's really nice on the west end of the city, and so we hope to work towards that. Next. If you want to look it up, it's called West Rock Landing. It used to be called Jolly Rogers. They've changed the name of it, and it's now called West Rock Landing, and you're welcome to go out there and look it up on their website if you want to look them up. And we're really excited about them being there. Next. Industry trends. Now, this is where we're going to get into the rate stuff a little bit. Let's go to the next one. All right, red line is population growing. Despite population growing, the line you need to pay most attention to is the black bars that are there, and its water use is decreasing. So you have overall water use going down, but population is growing, and that's because people are using less water per person. Next slide. How are they using less water per person? They got low flush toilets, they got low water washing machines, they got like shower heads that stop it, they got faucets that are better, they got dishwashers that are more efficient, so the water use per customer is going down. Why is that important? Most of our costs are fixed. It costs the same amount of money to replace a foot of pipe, whether we sell 1 million gallons or 5 million gallons. It costs the same amount of money to have the water treatment plant operators at the water treatment plant, whether we produce 1 million gallons of water or whether we produce 5 million gallons of water. Those are not variable costs for the most part. So costs are fixed, water consumption's going down. Next. And so this is what consumption looks like at CAW, and the blue line across the top is the maximum over the past 10 years. The red line is the minimum. The middle is the average. So when you look at our usage, like you go to 2012 and you see that spike, it's because it was a hot, dry summer. And then you come across and you see 2017 and 2018, and it's because we had record levels of rain. So nobody was using their sprinklers or using their water. Past the dotted line is what we're projecting going forward in our rate on assumptions as we're building. We're projecting a 2% reduction in consumption annually and a slight tick up in account growth. Next slide, please. So the other thing that's been going on this big is our new customer information system. All right, we've talked to you about this briefly last year, but I just want to come back. It handles 136,000 accounts and it collects $156 million annually. That is not all our money. As you see there underneath, the money is divided because we have 14 billing partners that we work with. We bill and collect for Little Rock Water Reclamation Authority. We bill and collect for Little Rock Solid Waste. We bill and collect for the franchise and pilot fees that are collected. CAW is $67,250 of it, and then we have about $8 million, a little over $8 million for others that we bill and collect for. Why do people like us to collect? Because we have a 99% collection rate. And then part of that billing system is it bills out 7,500 bills a day, and then we do customer calls and customer service orders through that. We are the only phone number on the front of the bill. Okay, I know the city has 311. I know that the city has other communicate. The Little Rock Water Reclamation Authority has thing, but we are the front of the bill. So when people open up their bill, that's the number they see, and they call us, and we try to answer most of those questions directly as a customer service for everybody. Next. But we're in the process of the CIS replacement. There's a next. And we're right there in the CIS prevention. We've done all the meetings with all the billing partners. We've prepared the RFP for the billing. We've selected the billing new CIS provider. And right now we've started the implementation phase. Next slide. Next slide. Didn't realize those were set up as student. And we're in that phase of the project. As we make our way through those 21 months of the implementation phase, we're in that part of the project, and we are just about to move over to testing and planning and execution within the new CIS. The new CIS project ought to be complete and put into place in the second quarter of 2020. Next. Why is that important? Well, our CIS system from an earlier slide was put into place in 1998. Your cell phone was not a computer then. Your cell phone was barely a flip phone if you had one, but people are using their phones for more and more, and our 20-year-old system doesn't do it, doesn't provide the services that people are looking for from a utility, and so we have to change our, it's one of the reasons why we have to change our CIS. Total price is about $12 million, and early on it was looked at that this is a cost that while we provide the service, it's a net zero-sum game, and so that cost should be shared by all of the billing partners equally, and it ought to be shared by all the users. And so that's how the cost and the repayment of it was looked at and developed. Next. So first thing is we looked at what we charge currently for billing services. We charge Little Rock Water Reclamation Authority 97 cents a month for billing service. Now that's for billing That's for handling the first phone calls to the level we can handle it. And that's for meter reading. They use our readers, and so they share in a percentage of the cost for the meter readers. Solid waste providers, 55 cents for the bill. And then CAW, when you look at all of our customer service cost and add it in there for the billing and collection services, we end up paying out of our rates about $2.76. Okay? So there was a look at how do we get more equitable in the rates so that all the users are paying a share of their portion of the rates for the cost of providing that service. And that's where we came up with the $1.92. Part of it is for the actual Pinnacle Project, which is what we call the CIS project, and part of it is for cost. I also want you to look down at the bottom, and that shows the payments that are received every year, and those different areas show the different types of services. We have people that come in and pay walk-in. We have people that use quick pay. That means they go to the Walmart or they go to the local gas station that accepts payments, and they pay there. They pay lockbox, which means they mail in a check. They pay in-house ACH, which means CAW debits from their account. They pay electronic fund transfer, which is another way, our IVR or web services. IVR and web, EFT, there's a fee for ICH that's covered. Lockbox, we pay a lockbox fee to the banks for. Quick pay, the user pays a fee for. And then CAW and that $2.76 covers a lot of the walk-in expense so that people can walk in or pay our bills. Part of what we're hoping with the new CIS through the Pinnacle Project is to encourage people to move towards electronic payments that will absorb the cost of versus mailing in checks or walking in with checks or using the quick pay destinations where they pay, go to Walmart or go to a gas payment place and pay their bills there where they're charged a fee for that. So overall, we're looking to hope to help people encourage and move them to a less expensive way of paying their bills. Next. But we can't do that right now with our current CIS system. So in the future going forward, wastewater would still pay 97 cents, solid waste would still pay 55 cents, Central Arkansas Water, and then we'd have the billing service fee. Next, please. Oh, stay there just a second. But one of the things we want to do is if people will move to paperless billing, so we're not mailing bills anymore, we have a cost savings, so we would reduce the $1.92 to $1.42 by 50 cents. If they will elect to auto pay, which we can't really do efficiently right now, but once we get the new CIS system in place, we can reduce it to another 20 cents, and then we can reduce the rest of it off once we pay for the project. Next. New bill that would come out would look like this on the other side. So you'd see the CAW at the top, just like you do now, water reclamation at the bottom, Little Rock solid waste, and then the billing services fee at the bottom. Again, it's a fee, it is a service, it is a capital investment that is utilized by all of the service providers to be able to collect revenue, and therefore it ought to be shared by all the users equally. And then when you flip over and look at the actual, okay, what does that amount to on a bill? You see the percentages there on what it breaks down to on a bill. Next. Rate resolution that was sent over here after December. It attempted to forecast water usage through 2022. That's where we had the decreasing. And we're trying to hold our rates, which it does. But it does increase money for water protection fee. Water protection, source water protection is the most critical thing we do, probably besides the treatment of water. And there needs to be some additional revenues there. And then the billing service fee. Next. All right. Here's what we look like. If you look at the green bar that's 4 over from the left there, that's Little Rock today in the region. If you look at CAW, the green bar that's over right after Dallas right there, that is Little Rock after everything that's in the rate resolution compared to their 2018 bills. We're still very competitive regionally, nationally with our rates. And I say that because that's compared to their 2018 bills. We don't know what their rate increases are going to be. We don't know what they're doing. In fact, I know Dallas has got a rate increase in place. St. Louis has got a rate in place, but we don't know where those fit in on the graph, that those are going to shift. So our rates are still nationally very competitive. Next slide, please. How does it mean we compare to the region? Well, There's CAW at, with the billing fee, we're at $17.21. If you say, well, the billing fee is not just CAW, it's shared among all the billing partners, we're at $15.29. And when you compare it to the other municipalities in the region, our water rates are either 65 or 58%. Now, that's just water only. That's not the taxes. That's not the franchise fees, because different cities have different. That's the base charge, the availability charge, and the water fees. We're still very competitive in the region. In fact, we're clearly the lowest in the metropolitan area. Next. When you look at affordability and you look at CAW's water rates as a percentage of the medium household income, we're in the top quartile in the country at 0.38%. Next. If you look at our O&M cost per 100 miles of pipe, we're in the top quartile again. So our costs per 100 miles of pipe are very low. Next. When you look at our O&M per customer account, we're just outside the top quartile, which tells me we need more customer accounts. Next, because when you look at our cost per 100 miles of pipe, we're clearly very low. And then you get into our coverage and reserves, and this was the question raised by Director Hines. Our coverage is our board has set, we have bond covenant requirements, just like you all, which is 1.2. We have a goal of 1.9 and a stretch goal of 2.0, and I'll get into why those are that way in a minute. Same thing with cash on hand. We have goals and then a stretch goal. Next. And that really boils down to our Moody's rating. And being a revenue-driven thing instead of a tax-driven entity when issuing debt, they look at our cash on hand and they look at our various things. And if you look there about the fifth thing down, it says to get a AA rating, which is what we are, you need to have 150 to 250 days cash on hand available in your reserves to be able to maintain that rating. And as you see, the reds are where we are above or below whatever, and we've held a good, strong AA rating from Moody's for the last several years, and we want to hold on to that. That lowers our net interest cost for when we have to go to the market and borrow money. Next. So you look at our financials, December 31, and it says, wow, there's $66 million that they're holding on to. What are they doing with that $166 million? And I think Director Hines' direct question was, why don't we just pay for the Pinnacle Project out of cash? So next slide. First of all, the restricted and bonded construction is where we had $15 million, and it's part of it is paid. That bonded construction is the money to pay for the Pinnacle Project, and that's where that money would go for that we collect out of the billing service fee is to repay that debt. And as we incur the expenses, that money will be spent down. It's also using to acquire some watershed land and infrastructure replacement. I mean, infrastructure replacement is critical to maintaining the health of our system. Next slide. The next one is for bond. Next. There you go. Bond principal interest and debt service reserve. We can't touch that. It's required by our bond indentures. It's required to stay there until we pay off the bonds, and then it's used to make the last payment on the bond. Next one, please. Restricted consolidations is where we have consolidated Maumelle and another system called Fraser Pike into our system. They put money into CAW to make improvements to their systems. That's money that came from those individualized ratepayers, and it's used to go back because when, for instance, when we acquired Maumelle, we said, you must bring your system up to standards before we'll operate it, and that's money that we're using to make improvements to their system. That money is paid back by a separate line item on the Maumelle residents' bill. They have a monthly service charge, and then that service charge goes to repay the debt for the Maumelle improvements. And so that comes directly from them. It's not general CAW money. The next slide is deposits and watershed protection fees and SDSEs. 4.4 million of that is customer deposits. We return customer deposits after 1 year of good payment. If they keep up and they make all their payments for 1 year, we take an initial deposit when they open the account. That deposit assures the payment of water, Little Rock Water Reclamation Authority, and trash and solid waste. So that deposit assures payment of all those things. When they have 1 year of good payment history with their bills, then we return that money to them. If they then default, we ask for a deposit back. And then it's other deposits that watershed protection can only be used for expenditures within the watershed around Lake Maumelle or Lake Winona. And so there's different things that go there. And then, so that leaves us with the $31.4 million. Next slide. Okay, $31.4 million, days cash on hand to keep 200 days of days cash on hand to maintain, which is dead right in the middle of the AA rating. We need $26 million of days cash on hand. 2018 capital rollovers, we had 2018 capital projects that we could not complete, mainly because it was too wet. We had the cash on hand to do those projects. We couldn't complete them. We rolled those projects into 2019, and with it, we rolled the money for those projects, which is $2.2 million. The first payment on Lake DeGray is the $1.2 million that's coming up out of the 2019. And then we have unexpected capital needs that we keep $2 million available for. A lot of that comes up with various needs for cities or infrastructure projects or capital improvement projects that we didn't foresee before the year started. And then we have the money to be able to pay that, which leaves us with zero left at the bottom of unrestricted cash available for other projects. Next. Questions?
Tad, thank you so much for that very detailed report. We have a few questions, I believe. We'll start first with Director Compuris.
Going back to my favorite subject,
Okay.
Lake DeGray.
Yes, sir.
Go over that a little slower in more detail.
Of what's going on, happen on Lake DeGray?
Right.
Okay. We've been working on Lake DeGray since 1988.
Right.
Is that enough detail for you? Go back that far. We initially had an option to acquire that, and we paid about $175,000 a year to maintain that option. It was basically an interest payment, interest only, think about it. About 7 years ago, we notified them that we wanted to convert that option to a right. We wanted the right to be able to take water. That's when they came back and said, well, if you want to take water out of the lake, you have to pay power for gone. And we've been negotiating that for the past 7 years. I mean, and it's involved both not just the Corps, but also the electric utilities, because they get the power that comes through the dam when they run the water through the dam. We've reached the point now that that agreement has been approved by all the electric providers, the Vicksburg district, the headquarters for the Corps of Engineers. It went through legal and product review at the Corps of Engineers Civil Works Department with no comments, and it is now sitting on the desk of the ASA waiting for his signature. That's where we are.
Why are we waiting? Why isn't he signing?
When they originally told us that they sent it there on February 1, they asked for the response by March 31st. I actually said, hey, I have this presentation to give, and I'd really like to be able to tell them that it's signed before then. We've had both senators and all the representatives engaged in working with the Corps of Engineers to get it signed. We don't think it's because a hang-up. They were closed for 30 days. I mean, they've got a lot of things they're looking at. We don't think there's any problem with it. We're just waiting for it to get signed.
So, but we've already paid our first quarterly installment.
It's not due yet. We have approved it, but we haven't paid it yet.
Okay, because your slide said you paid it, I think.
Oh, sorry if it did.
Okay. So.
No, the $1.2 million is there that would come out of our cash reserves to pay it.
Okay.
You look at our total cash reserves, we got to pull $1.2 million out of that to pay to the Corps.
So we pay it yearly for 4 years?
Yes, sir.
And then our right is forever?
Yes, sir.
We have that water forever?
Yes, sir.
What do we have to pay when we start drawing?
Power for gone, and it'll be based on the cost of power at the time. So don't know exactly what that would be. I will tell you that I've been toying, and as we walk at the Capitol and we have the availability, well, I'll just replace the power with a solar field right there by Lake DeGray versus paying for the power for gone.
And do we have an agreement with Hot Springs anymore?
Yes, Hot Springs has 20 million. We have 100 million.
And are they paying, have they done the same thing?
They pay.
No. Are they doing the same agreement? Are they part of this agreement or is it separate?
Two separate agreements.
Okay.
We each have our own agreement.
And we have the first right, is that right? Or they do, or is it concurrent?
It's concurrent.
Okay.
In fact, the intake site that's been located, it would eventually be, it would be two separate intakes, but they'd be located side by side. So the infrastructure to get power in there and the roads and stuff like that would be shared.
Okay. Because at one point in time, we were talking about going ahead and building that because they wanted to go ahead and take their water.
As soon as we can get this agreement, I suspect that they will start building.
So that means where do we get the capital to build our part?
We don't have to build it until we want to go get the water.
But I thought you just said we build it concurrently or we build it together.
No, we build at the same location. I apologize if I misspoke, but we build it at the same location. They'd be right there so that the infrastructure would share for both, but we'd have our own intake site. Biggest reason is because we need pumps that are 5 times bigger than their pumps.
And then what is the estimated cost of getting it to Little Rock?
A bunch.
And a bunch is,
$600 million in 1998 dollars.
I mean, as you know, I think this is our future.
I would
I
agree with
as
you.
I have been beating on you since we've been starting this. But I think this is the most important thing for our community moving forward, to having a secure source of water. And I would appreciate it as soon as you get that thing signed that we're notified.
I'll send you a copy.
Thank you.
All right, Director Hines.
Ted, first I want to say thanks for your work on DeGray. I know dealing with the Corps is not an easy task. First, they give us a hard time about where we're going to take the water, which that was your first victory, I think, and some signals from our congressional delegation that I'm sure Senator Bozeman's office has helped you, and I know Congressman Hill has been helpful as well. But
Yes.
appreciate that. I know it's I've had dealings with them before on other issues through other deals like duck hunting, and it's never an easy, especially with the Vicksburg office for some reason. Quick questions about the new CIS system, and
Okay.
here was my consternation. We seem to be in this pattern, and even from your deals, is that as you see decreased usage, and we're probably been our own worst enemy in that, much like we've done with our fuel tax to pay for our roads, as we push higher CAFE standards, just like we push lower use standards, we fall victim to how our metrics are set up. I still question, and this goes back to our first meeting when you became CEO, is what is the utility doing to lower overhead costs? And I know you're going to have a certain amount, but what are you guys doing in middle management, corporate level? And you don't have to answer me today because this is probably out of left field, but I think having been involved with our Water Reclamation Authority, they had to go through some belt tightening back when we had, they're a direct victim of the economy especially with their commercial users as revenue ebbs and flows. But I still challenge you to make sure that you guys are right-sized and are spending the ratepayers' money wisely. And that's a question you can get back to me on, but I think that's something I haven't seen or heard anything on that. It's all what we're doing, how we're spending money. It's not how are we being more efficient and reducing those rates. The other issue is that on this, and so on the CIS system, the 136,000 accounts, do they all pay this fee?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just doing some simple math here and we can run down. So the allocations from the partners, Little Rock Water Reclamation, Solid Waste, and CAW remain at $4.28 per month.
Yes.
Okay. Then we're going to add a $1.92 fee, and there's some reductions you can get with automated bill pay, 50 cents and 70. And then you said eventually the debt retirement, it would be 87 cents a month, and that would what term are we on for that debt retirement? 5, 10, 15?
It's like 7 years, but we hope to prepay it with growth because it goes on every
Okay.
account. So as we get growth in the account, then we reduce that faster.
So that's over 7 years. So let's fast forward to 7 years, we retired the debt. That still leaves $1.05 and I kept the rate stagnant at 136,000 customers. That's $142,800 a month.
Okay,
Oh, you trust my math?
sure. I have no reason to argue with your math.
No. Well, and I'm just, so, and then if you had every ratepayer took the 70-cent deduction for going on, but that would, the worst case scenario would be, that would be your reduction in fees. So you've got to swing, and that's $47,000 a month. So what is that over and above? I guess the question is, I know you have some account maintenance with software upgrades, that type stuff. But at those numbers, that's in one case, 142,000 a month is well over $1 million. And at 47,000 a month, it's roughly 500,000 a year in revenue generated over and above what you guys are getting now for software that will have been paid for other than the yearly maintenance fee.
Sure.
So why does that fee not go away completely? I mean, and I can understand you would need to retain some for upgrade replacement.
I would say that, in fact, I told my board, there's no way we leave a, 45-cent fee on the bill. But between now and when it's paid off, we rework our billing agreement with all our billing partners to absorb that additional cost.
Okay. Well, and I guess that's what I see, because the other segue is when we look at the watershed protection fee, you're looking for an increase there. And overall, these increases don't seem very much.
That's correct.
But you and I both don't live on a fixed income, and we're not going to miss roughly $3 a month. But there are people in this community that are going to miss that, and it's a tough time. So I think that's where it's doing. But just like in my business, it's not the base rates that get you now in the freight business. It's all the accessorials that they add on. And I continue to see creep from the utility. We started out with watershed protection fee. Now we're going to have a billing fee. Do you see? And it all starts to add up at the end. And that's why I question where we're going with this. And then the other issue of adjusting your base rate based on wet or dry years. That affects the base volumetric rate, affects every ratepayer, especially those on the lower end that probably use less water and affected. So I just question all of these things coming at once. And I understand you're projecting lower usage from that. But I'm trying to wrap my head around all of this revenue, and we've continued to see revenue increases, whether it's on the surcharge for sprinkler meters, which we've had discussions about that. The intent was to reduce peak time water usage. But at the end of the day, it was really a revenue gain from the people that could afford to pay it. I just question if what we're trying to get is, maybe we're going about it with that the wrong way, but I'm just trying to wrap my head around why you did this. In the watershed, why do we need an increase for watershed protection?
Because there are stresses in the watershed where we need to have funds available, and our watershed fees are gone.
Okay. Well, what stresses are those, Ted?
Development.
Okay. But so the other question would be, if it's development, why are we going out and buying raw timberland when in the recent study of the watershed, we thought forestry was the best protection and best and highest use in the watershed for protecting our water
Because
source?
they don't want to forest it.
Well, they didn't sell it for a price that says they don't want to forest it.
Oh, I mean, they want to.
And I guess the question is, I've got lots of friends over at Deltic, now Deltic Potlatch.
Sure.
Those companies are not in the business of selling property they don't intend to harvest and utilize. And my question is, at this point, it goes up from 40 to 60 cents. And the next time you're back asking for 80, I just question, it seems like the story changes. Well, we think this is good for watershed protection. Development's bad, so we're gonna increase the zoning regulation so we don't get as high a density development. But we think forestry's good. But if they're never gonna forest that land, which I don't believe, it just seems like it's a moving ball, and then you're coming to us for a rate increase on watershed protection on top of a billing cycle. And the question is, can that wait, or, it just seems like all at once and we're biting, and maybe you just want to take one giant bite at the apple. But the question is, when I see a projection in my business, if there's less freight moving, my customers don't allow me to take a price increase. In fact, when things get bad, they're looking on me to lower my rates, not raise them. You've got a captive market. It's monopoly. And so, as Milton Friedman would say, one of the roles of government is regulation of monopoly. And I take that very seriously because looking out for the folks in our community, and I'm telling you, most of my ward is not going to see a huge impact for $3.00. But when you add it up over time, it's a huge revenue dollars, and I just want to make sure that we have a full understanding of why that's happening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Director Fortson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm back. Thank you, Tad, for the presentation, which is obviously very comprehensive. I'm back on Director Campuris's comment. The DeGray addition has been on the top of my radar for some time, and I'm glad to see that hopefully coming to a conclusion. You've told us this before. Tell me again, what is the projected life of Maumelle based on your projected usage? How many years do we have out there?
In 2010, the projected was 70 years. So it's a ways, and that's why I'm saying we're not going to have to pay that power for gone for a long time when we need to go that water. The things that impact the health of Lake Maumelle are as much sediment as anything else because it makes it shallower. It's already a shallow lake, and the more shallow it gets, it's not actually the taking up of the volume that takes it away, but it's actually that you have sunlight reach deeper, and so you have greater algae blooms, which then decreases your capacity to be able to remove water from the lake. So, but we have a while to rely on Lake Maumelle, absent some catastrophic event.
Well, I assume somewhere along the line, that $600 million is going to have to build a 50-mile pipeline.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I would say that I think as the community and the area continues to grow, there's the potential to go to a river in between that's got higher water quality than the Arkansas River, but a river in between, and bring water partway and then continue the rest of the way to Ouachita to Lake DeGray to get the full amount of the water when we need it.
Thank you.
Director Wright.
Just a quick question,
Okay.
Ted. Is this something this board will have to approve?
No, this board does not have to.
But we don't
approve.
have any choice in the matter.
The way the consolidation agreement was set up when it was first set up is that the CAW board would approve a rate resolution, and if both the cities of Little Rock and North Little Rock do not approve it, then it would not occur. But it would take both cities voting no.
I needed my constituents to hear that because I don't want my bill to go up any more than they do. And I kind of share some of Director Hines' concerns because you do have a monopoly. And every time we turn around, it looks like that bill keeps getting bigger and bigger. And I've been paying attention to mine a lot lately, and I'm like, okay.
We do watch it. I think, and when you look at some of our costs, when I was looking at cost per miles, I understand that it's going up. I would rather go to the dentist than come down here and talk to you all about rates. So believe me, we look for ways to be able to control those costs because there'd be a whole lot of other things I'd rather be doing on a Tuesday night. But this is where we are.
Well, as someone who's definitely afraid of the dentist, I can appreciate that. But I'm also concerned about people on those fixed incomes. And like he said, $3 may not mean a lot to his constituents, but I have quite a few that it will mean something to because it all adds up.
Sure. I will tell you one of the things that we're working on now already is some partnership with some local banks to try to help the unbanked get banked so that we can go to more of the electronic payment in the letter to reduce those costs. We do have the provision in there for low water uses. There's a reduced rate. There's a discount fee that's still in the rate resolution if you're a low water user, which is below 3 units a month. So for the lower income, if they're not using a lot of water, then we have the reduced rate there. We have had various assistance programs in the past, and we're looking at how we can beef those up and make sure that they're available.
So how do you advertise that to let people know that they, or do they just automatically get it if they are a low user?
If they automatically get it.
They will automatically
They
get it.
automatically get it if they're a low user.
Okay. Okay. If I had to vote, it'd probably be no, so.
I can understand.
Tom?
Tad, one question I've got is, what steps did Central Arkansas Water take in the agreement that's sitting on somebody's desk to be signed to assure that a state like Texas doesn't come in and take DeGray away from us, or at least our right to that water in DeGray?
Well, first of all, we have the pool of available water that's available for municipal supply allocated. It was initially 157 million gallons a day, of which we'll have 100. Hot Springs will have 20. And then of Kimsey has 8. There's a couple of small water users down there. So all of the available water that is allocated within Lake DeGray for municipal or industrial water use is claimed. It's taken. It's all gone. They could go to Congress and get a reallocation, but it would be difficult, particularly with the hydropower usages out of the lake.
And that would be a taking where they'd have to pay us anyway, right?
It would be additional water added to the municipal and industrial water pool.
All right, Director Hines?
One other quick question, Ted. So I'm looking at Joel's revenue allocation on your revenues and expenses form. On the penalties and turn-ons, is the utility still charging a 10% penalty on late bills?
Yes.
Okay. So that impacts probably some of our, or is there any look, is that why, I guess, what's the reason it's still at 10%? And is that something that you could guys look at reducing? Because it tends to have an impact sometimes on the folks who struggle to make those payments.
Sure.
And you may say that that's why we have such good payment terms.
It is part of
So
why
I know
we-
there's a thin line you've got to look at.
It is part of why we have such good payment terms. I will also tell you that we could look at it. It doesn't compound, so it's just kind
a
of
flat-
It's a
flat
flat fee. The other thing, and we'll put Doug on the spot behind me here, but one of the things I've asked him to do is we're trying to get we've looked at our hot spots for where do we have the most turnoffs or where do we have the most, and we're trying to get meetings set up with those communities in those areas.
Okay.
And the question to ask them is, help us help you. How can we help you avoid missed payments? How can we help you avoid late payments? Because we don't like it more than anybody else. I mean, so that's one of the things that we're going to go out and outreach into the community about.
Well, I appreciate you taking a look at it. The other question I had is, when it comes to Maumelle, and we talk about it, $600 million, has there been any study to looking at what we could do to reclaim Maumelle? You know, potentially when you look at 600 million, I know you'd still have to, if we had DeGray up and running, could we drain Maumelle, dredge it, and, you know, turn it back into a healthier, when you start talking about those kind of numbers sometimes.
There's been studies that looked at raising the dam. There's been studies that have looked at bringing in a dredging barge and basically dredging. It's got the existing, we just did a I can't say it. We had a survey done of the topography under the water.
Okay.
So that we can find out how the silt has changed and what's moved, because we have the original topography maps from when the lake was first built.
Right.
And now we have a topography of the lake now that it's.
Is that a WPA project or?
It was not.
It was not. It was after that, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
It was built in 56.
Okay.
So we've had a study done to look at that, and there's been various studies done, but it would be expensive, and raising the dam gets kind of particularly difficult.
Okay, as long as y'all are.
We look
looking
at it
that.
regularly.
I'll try not to get into your sandbox. 'Cause
Come join us.
I'm going to.
Okay.
April 25th, right?
We're excited about that.
Director Hendricks?
Thank you. My question is to you. When is your next board meeting of Central Arkansas Water?
March 14th.
Well, I would encourage these people to visit. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
The individuals that ask these long questions, I would suggest that they go to the board meeting. Since you did say we will not be voting, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, take it to the board. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tad. Hopefully, you won't have another dentist appointment.
That's not fair to dentists. I shouldn't say that. I apologize to my own. But thank you all very much. It's always a pleasure. Like I said, we ought to do this more often. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That being said, we have an addition to add to our agenda, a resolution regarding the Arkansas Tax Back Program. Is there a motion for M1? Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. We can now proceed with our review of the proposed agenda. Are there any questions for agenda items 1 through 9? Director Wright.
On the resolution number 2 and 3, I'd like to know what kind of truck costs $84,000. Can somebody?
Mr. Hinton, could you please approach the podium?
And what is an air sweeper?
Need to take some time?
You know I'm good. Director Wright, that is a bucket truck for.
There's a what?
Bucket truck. You know, the big trucks you see, the trucks you see out there with the bucket on it, going up in the air to get things down. The F-750, those are not cheap.
Well, I know that the 750, but it didn't say nothing about bucket truck.
That's what
it just
it is.
said pickup truck.
Well,
So I guess it's a pickup truck with a bucket on it.
well, it shouldn't say pickup truck. That's wrong.
Okay,
That should say
that's
bucket
that's
truck.
where my radar went up. That's
Yeah.
where the red flag. Because when
No,
you say
well,
pickup,
well, you're right. Pickup.
that's
That'd be a
that.
nice pickup truck, wouldn't it?
Yes, it said pickup. I'm saying like, okay, now
No,
if that's a bucket truck, that's I can understand that. But
That's a bucket truck. We'll get that changed.
please
before
do
the- Yes, ma'am.
because that's $84,000. That's a lot of truck.
And your question on 3, that is a street sweeper.
So it doesn't. So air sweeper is a sweet sweeper.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Okay, is this does this add to our fleet of 8 or
Yes,
is this so we'll have 9,
Yes, ma'am. Actually, we'll have 11.
11? Well, maybe somebody can give me a schedule then.
That'll be him.
I still want a schedule before. Yeah, so people know when they're coming.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Director Adcock?
Yes. On item 7, I would like to know how much we charge for police and fire patrol in Camac Village. And does it cover, what we're receiving, does it cover the cost of sending our fire trucks and our police to that area?
Assistant Chief Falk?
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, Mr. Jones, Mr. Carpenter, Ms. Langley. I can speak on the police end of it. Fire chief may want to have a comment on it, but we already, this is actually worded incorrectly, we already dispatched Little Rock Fire to Camac Village and have been. This is actually just to start dispatching Little Rock Police. There may not have been a formal agreement on fire. I don't know. This was drafted, I think, by the city attorney's office. That was our last contact. But this is really just for police, and they would be paying what they do right now. They currently pay Maumelle PD to dispatch for them. What happens is any cell phone call that comes in from Camac hits our communications center to begin with. Then we transfer it over to Maumelle so that Maumelle can then dispatch Camac Village, which we surround.
Thank you so much, Captain. Chief Hubbard? Thank you, Assistant Chief Falk.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the board. Director Adcock, fire is currently and have been covering that area, responding to emergencies in that area. I don't have the exact number of calls we responded to in that area, but I can follow up with you with that information. The agreement has been, we've been receiving $10,000 towards our Fire Prevention Bureau for coverage to that area as the agreement currently stands.
Mr. Jones, I'd like to know if the $10,000 that the chief has talked about is just for the fire, or if that's now going to also include the police, and how many calls we have done in the last year to Kamak Village.
Okay, we'll get that for you.
Thank you.
Is that Chief Falk?
Yes, ma'am. The police will get $13 additional thousand to go towards dispatching for police. And last year, Kamak Village for police calls had 366. In addition to this, Judge Leverett will start hearing Kamak Village's criminal cases in his court. So it is also kind of important for us to be the one dispatching, because we'll be the ones having to verify the warrants. They don't have a very high volume at all. Basically, it equivalates to 1 call per day in Kamak Village dispatching. They had less. I talked to their chief. They had 20 felony warrants all of last year. They only have criminal court every other month. And Judge Leverett will now be the one that actually is going to hear their criminal cases. So that's another reason Judge Leverett also wanted us to try to get on board, because it would be rather disjointed if Pulaski County, who they were going to court with now, if they kept the warrants on file and Maumelle was dispatching, and then now Judge Leverett has somehow gotten to be the judge over Kamak's criminal court. This is kind of bringing it all in-house. And we are actually the ones, police-wise, that have to back up this city anytime that there is a problem. One of them is an officer safety issue as well. They have Jefferson Elementary, which is a Little Rock public school that is within their city, but it is our school. And if we were ever to have an active shooter, things of that nature, the time of us having to get the call from Maumelle, or potentially get the call, bounce it to Maumelle, and then come back to Little Rock, that's just additional downtime that it would take for us to possibly have to respond to something critical. And we would be the backup.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Director Hendricks?
On the situation that you just talked about, I would suggest that you really investigate this, because this is the first. I thought Kamak Village was a city of its own. Please check that, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
This is terrible.
Director Hines?
Just thank you, Mayor. I just want to clarify. So it says here that this is an agreement for dispatch services, not
Correct.
for police response or fire.
No,
We have
it's-
mutual assistance with these
Correct.
guys. Okay, so I just want to
Yeah,
clarify.
we
This
will
is just
not
for us to do 911.
policing for them, and they won't do it for us. But obviously, we are the closest agency if they had a critical emergency where
Mutual
clearly,
aid.
yes.
We have a mutual aid agreement. Okay, I just want to clarify, because we're talking like we're calling, and this is just for us to handle
This is
911
just for
dispatch
them,
services.
yes,
Okay,
and they have
good.
about 1 call a day. And we
a
already
little
have
confused.
handled their fire, and we used to handle doing police dispatch years ago.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Director Wright?
Director Hines, if I could, the mutual aid agreements have gone by the wayside, and now there's a mandatory requirement for cities like Little Rock to respond to those critical situations.
Director Wright?
Mayor, that was my concern, that it was getting confused, because I know they do have their own police force. So
They
when
will
you
continue.
say dispatch, that means the call comes to our system, but the call, their police force would actually
Yes,
go to
ma'am.
that scene.
Yes, ma'am.
Not LRPD.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Director Richardson? Oh, redo it again. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, would this require, I know we've had some challenges already currently with our dispatch services. Would this require, from a resource standpoint, any additional staffing? Will we have to absorb any additional staffing? Because I know we've already currently, with our current system, we have challenges with respect to our dispatch services. So us taking this on, will this add any requiring the need for any additional staffing from a capacity standpoint?
And you're right, sir. We definitely have discussed that. However, their call load is so minimal, it would equal approximately 1 dispatch a day for us.
Okay.
So, no, it should not have any impact on our dispatch center at all.
Okay, thank you.
Board members, do we have any questions for plan and develop items 10 through 13? Any questions? Director Adcock?
Yes, on item 10, Mr. Jones, I would like to know if this would allow a special event center or a bar and grill with this change in zoning? And is this outside the city limits?
Mr. Collins, please approach the podium.
This is Mayor, Director, members of the board, Director Adcock. This is a revisions to a previous PID. They asked for specific items that are on there for it, and the specific uses existing was general professional office, convenience store without gas pumps, auto mechanic shop, warehouse, barber shop, tire sales and installation, beauty salon, and retail store. I do not see in there, there's no alcohol sales on there. It's specifically listed as that in the analysis. Their prior use was just a carpet cleaning business and insulation company.
Okay, but it does not ask specifically for a special event center?
No.
Or a bar, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Seeing no other questions for items 10 to 13. Are there any questions for the separate items 14 through 18? And 14 through 16 are going to be held separate due to the fact that there are sole source ordinances. Yeah, they all are. That being said, we'll continue to move forward there. Any questions on item 17 and 18? Director Adcock?
Mr. Jones, last week I requested some information from Mr.
Director Adcock, can you?
Yes. Last week I requested some question answers from item 17 from Mr. Moore, and I've not seen those yet. I would like to see those before we vote on this next week, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, Ms. Cox, if you would, please come.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. I'd like to provide you with the legislative update. Lots going on at the Capitol. And first, in regards to our legislative package, House Bill 1002 is the online sales tax bill that accomplishes our goals by requiring out-of-state sellers to collect and remit sales tax. And it's sponsored by Representative Douglas, and it is still in the House Revenue and Tax Committee. And as a reminder, Governor Hutchinson's proposed balanced budget assumes that the online sales tax measure passes in some fashion. So if a separate bill is filed, I'll keep you apprised of that. And then the second item in our agenda is to clarify the ability to use short-term financing for electronic data. And I reported last time that there's a new GASB rule that we're trying to work through, so I've got one more box I need to check on that one before we move forward with that. And the last item in our agenda is to toughen anti-intimidation statutes for criminal cases. And House Bill 1454 has been filed by Representative Collins, and the bill is in the House Judiciary Committee. And Representative Collins has told me that another House member is also very interested in it, and that there might be amendments forthcoming. So I'll keep you updated on that as well. And then in terms of House bills, House Bill 1029 is a monuments bill that has come up several times before. And last time that I spoke with you, I had told you that an amendment would be coming. I was hopeful an amendment would be forthcoming, so that it wouldn't have it's got lots of practical implications for us. The definition of monument is really broad. It includes streets and if there's any historical monument, if you want to make an alteration to it, you'd have to go to the Arkansas History Commission to be able to make a change to it. So I had thought an amendment would be able to occur, and it sounds like as of last night that's not going to happen. So I've spoken with several committee members about it, and the Municipal League understands all the issues that go with that too. So we're working to try and to work against that bill. House Bill 1041 about the award procedure for certain public contracts. Director Adcock, you had asked about that last time, and I had included an update in the weekly update that I send out. But it's the Municipal League's bill, and it's not about the threshold that the board reviews something. It's about when something would be competitively bid, and they were trying to get some consistency across various code sections. And then House Bill 1402 by Representative Gonzalez is to limit special elections to basically 2 times a year. And we're working hard with the coalition against that bill since it limits our abilities. And House Bill 1410 by Representative Gazaway is the implied warranty of habitability bill that we're supporting. And that bill is in the House Insurance and Commerce Committee. And I'm working with a coalition on that bill and educating members about that one. House Bill 1493 is the Arkansas Historic Rehabilitation Income Tax Credit Bill. And this one has been changed several sessions in a row. And this bill reduces the investment threshold that's necessary to qualify so that more non-income producing properties would qualify. So that bill got out of the House Revenue and Tax Committee this morning. House Bill 1564 is the Public Safety Act of 2019, and it was filed yesterday, and it's a comprehensive bill about 911, and it's a very lengthy bill. It's approximately 55 or 56 pages, so we're still looking into it, but because it is complex. But generally speaking, we do have concerns about the bill. It replaces the Arkansas Emergency Telephone Services Board with the Arkansas 911 Board, and it limits funding to no more than 77 public safety answer points, or PSAPs as we refer to them. And it provides funding upgrades for AWIN, and also it provides funding for further deploying rural broadband, which is hard to say. And then one of the goals of the bill is to simplify and consolidate the charges that are currently paid by telecommunications subscribers. And so that means repealing existing fees and creating a uniform and consolidated charge. And our finance department has looked at that, and there's just no way to know without a full study what the fiscal impact of that would be. So we have concerns about that bill, and we'll dig more into it. And then on to the Senate bills. The Senate Bill 151, which concerns the pursuit of a National Cancer Institute designated cancer center at UAMS, is now an act. And then separately, there have been a couple of bills filed about funding that measure. And House Bill 1565 was recently filed, and it does have some funding implications, but it also preempts local government in some regards. So we're looking at that one as well. I believe the preemption is about additional local regulation on tobacco products. So we're looking into that and talking to the Municipal League as well. And Senate Bill 179 by Senator Johnson regarding reorganizing municipal government is still, it's been on the deferred list in the Senate State Agencies Committee lately. Senate Bill 196 would adopt the IRS code at the state level for opportunity zones, and that bill has also been enacted. And then I also wanted to let you know that today Senate Bill 411 by Senator Stubblefield was filed, and it prohibits municipal sanctuary policies. And those are the bills that I wanted to highlight for you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Director Richardson.
Thank you, Mayor. Emily, thank you for your presentation. I noticed you made reference to our work with the Municipal League on a couple of the bills, and I heard you express your work with a committee on 1410. Does that suggest we're working with anybody from Municipal League?
The Municipal League is not involved in that coalition.
So, and I know I'd looked at exploring the possibility of trying to craft a resolution from the city's standpoint to have some kind of explicit declaration of our support. So can you tell me real briefly what it is, how are we going to move forward with this committee, and what are we should be expecting from this committee with respect to addressing this bill?
It's a coalition of, it's a broad coalition. I can provide you with the exact list of who's participated. And we have spoken about outreach to the relevant committee members, that the bill is in.
And it's in the House Insurance and Commerce Committee. It's going to be voted on tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Is that correct?
It is on the agenda, and so it's possible.
So it is possible tomorrow at 10. It's still in the House Insurance and Commerce Committee.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, Emily.
Director Hines?
Sure. Thanks for the update. On 1454, if you keep me updated on that, that's something that I've been personally interested in. I'd like to come testify once we get to that point.
Okay.
And then on the 911 bill, I sent that over this morning when Municipal League sent it to, I was at the Ambulance Authority meeting this morning and sent it to John Swanson for his input, since they do operate a call center as well. And they also are the state trauma call center, TraumaCom. So looking at both of those. And what was the House bill that?
Oh, sorry about that. Go back. There you go.
What was the House bill that you said was just filed on to prevent us from?
Senate Bill 411.
411, okay. And that was Senator Chesterfield?
No, Senator Stubblefield.
Stubblefield, okay.
Director Wright?
Mayor, mine is not on these bills, but it's on marijuana. I needed to bring this up last time, but we got dismissed abruptly. I've had some constituents to be very, very upset because Mr. Carpenter, marijuana dispensary is going to be located on 12th Street, not far from Rodney Parham, and there was no notification given to the community. And as I tried to explain to them, the state regulates that, and they don't notify citizens of anything, but they felt like we as a city should have notified them. But when I contacted the city manager, he didn't even know it. So I'm trying to find out where are these sites that have already been approved where a marijuana dispensary can be located. And I needed it to be, Mayor, brought up here in this body so we could hear that these things are starting to pop up. And this particular one is going to be in a former bar or something. And they said the zoning was already there. Joe Bear, so whatever you call it.
That's why I just heard that this week.
Yeah, and my phone's been ringing off the hook because that is Ward 6. I did not know. I thought that the last time we had even discussed this, the only place I could have one would be in the off Markham somewhere, in that shopping center out by Dave's Burgers. So who could give me that information, Mr. Assistant City Manager or Mr. Carpenter? And what is the exact actual zoning that allows these things?
Director Wright, the constitutional provision referenced the ability to locate a dispensary any place that you could locate a drugstore in terms of zoning, and that was mandated. In terms of where these actual ones are located and who has gotten them, I would have to believe there's a state website that gives that, since it's a state decision. It's who's going to get the permission and where it's going to be.
So any place in Little Rock that has zoning that will allow a pharmacy can become a marijuana dispensary.
Yes.
And I wanted to say that plainly so that everyone that's watched this broadcast can hear that. It is not within our control. You can call me if you want, but it is not something we control.
Thank you, Director Wright. Director Adcock?
I would like to have the Stubblefield bill too in the morning if possible.
I'm sorry?
The Stubblefield bill.
Sure.
I'd like to have it in the morning if possible.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Director Richardson?
Yes, Mayor. Tom, back to the dispensaries. Are there not prohibitions with respect to proximity to churches? location with respect to proximity to churches for these dispensaries? They don't have any kind of prohibition or any kind of limitations? It's all out? I mean, you can just put them anywhere?
Where if a pharmacy can be located in that zoning, then a dispensary can be.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no other questions, thank you everyone for your attendance tonight. We look forward to seeing you to next week's meeting on Tuesday, March the 5th. Meeting adjourned.